Welcome! Today, we're diving into a strategic playbook for what is, frankly, one of the most challenging parts of doing business in Nepal, getting your profits out of the country. Now, for any foreign investor, this process is notoriously full of delays. It turns a pretty routine financial move into a long, bureaucratic marathon. But what if that delay isn't an accident? And that right there, that statement, gets to the absolute heart of the issue. It suggests that these chronic delays investors are facing are actually systemic, a deliberate, even if it's unstated, part of the economic landscape. So our goal in this explainer is to deconstruct that system for you and give you the tools to navigate it and win. So let's frame the core problem here. We call it Nepal's repatriation paradox. And it's this. On one hand, the country actively and very publicly tries to attract foreign direct investment, or FDI. But on the other hand, when those investments actually generate a profit, the process of bringing that money home is incredibly difficult. This creates a huge fundamental conflict. You get this warm welcome for capital coming in, but a really cold shoulder for returns going out. So what we're offering today is a strategic guide to break through this gauntlet. It's a method that can potentially cut the typical 9-month delay by more than half. Okay, so if we're going to solve this problem, we first have to understand where it really comes from. See, most investors, they focus on that final approval stage, but that's actually a mistake. The real bottleneck, the true source of the delay, is hidden much earlier in the process. If you look at it on paper, the official path seems pretty linear and logical, right? After the fiscal year ends, you do your statutory audit. Then you hold your annual general meeting, your AGM, to declare the dividend. From there, you get approval from the Department of Industries, and then finally, you apply to the Nepal Repatriating, that's the central bank, for the final green light. Seems straightforward enough. But this brings up a huge question. If the central bank is just the final checkpoint, where is all that time being lost? Why does a process that looks like it should only take a few weeks end up eating up the better part of an entire year? And here's the answer. The delay doesn't come from the final gatekeeper. The whole system gets completely bogged down by one single document, the Tax Clearance Certificate, or TCC. The timing of this one certificate within Nepal statutory calendar creates this massive cascading pileup. This timeline really lays the problem bare. So the fiscal year ends in mid-July. The audit alone, that takes until December or January. This pushes your AGM into February. It's only then that you can even apply for the TCC, which, by the way, isn't issued until May. So by the time you finally get to the central bank, it's often July, a full year after the profits were even earned. Let's put a number on that. We're talking about a typical delay of around 270 days. Now, for a parent company that's operating on a global calendar, this timing mismatch is a huge financial planning headache. A dividend from one fiscal year doesn't even arrive until you're deep into the next one, and that seriously damages the investment's net present value. So, how do we fix this? Well, we can't just follow the standard reactive sequence of events. The solution requires a complete shift in your mindset. You need a proactive strategy that treats repatriation as a core objective from day one of the fiscal year. The single most critical tactic in this playbook is moving to what's called a concurrent audit. Now, instead of waiting for the year to end and then starting the audit, your auditors work throughout the year. They conduct major tests every single quarter. So by the time the fiscal year closes, most of the heavy lifting, it's already done. I mean, just look at the difference here. It's night and day. A traditional audit leads to that 270-plus day timeline and a payout that doesn't happen until the next calendar year. Our strategic playbook, which is built on that concurrent audit, completely slashes that to under 150 days. That enables a same-year payout. So let's walk through this new calendar, just to see how it works in practice. With a concurrent audit, you can finalize it by September 15th. This lets you hold an AGM by the end of September. You then file for the TCC immediately, on October 1st. With some proactive communication with the tax office, you can get it by the end of the month, which allows you to submit your final application to the central bank. And the result? Those funds hit your account by mid-December. Now, this playbook is very effective, but let's be honest, it requires a lot of effort. So what does the future hold? Is this always going to be necessary? Well, the outlook really depends on the government's appetite for reform. We see two likely scenarios ahead. First, there's the status quo, where basically nothing changes and our playbook remains an absolutely essential tool. The second is incremental reform. Think about things like digitization of the tax and central bank portals. that could probably shave a couple of months off the process, which would be a welcome improvement for sure, but not a fundamental fix. And this brings us to the hard truth behind all the bureaucracy. You see, these delays aren't just about inefficiency. For an economy that constantly worries about its foreign exchange reserves, slowing down the outflow of capital acts as an unstated policy tool to manage those reserves. This is the fundamental calculation that policymakers in Nepal must eventually make. True, real, transformative change is only going to happen when the government decides that the damage it's doing to investor confidence and that chilling effect it has on future investment is a much bigger price to pay than the short-term comfort of holding on to foreign currency for a few extra months. And so we end with this question. In the global competition for capital, trust and predictability are currencies in their own right. For Nepal, deciding whether investor confidence is its most valuable reserve, well, that decision will ultimately shape its entire economic future.